Because
Right.
when the Federation collapsed in '62, right, Prime Minister Barrow made an attempt to form a continental federal, an arrangement, a union with these, what we call the Little A. We were
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
seven plus Barbados. That did not come true. So there are about seven of them, I think, who
Yes,
constitute.
yes.
Right, right. They have a
And
headquarters. They
and
have their
and
own central bank, etc.
mhm. And the interesting thing is that they are also members of CARICOM.
Right. They're also members of CARICOM. You understand?
Uh, yeah,
But it's understandable that people will try to
yeah.
protect look after. That
Yeah,
is their
yeah.
interest first.
Hmm.
And why
Hmm.
we have to be reassured that Barbados is doing the same. We need to be told why it is being done now. Why, despite all of the problems, we are in this mad rush. Why the 1st of October?
Yeah,
What
and
is so
and
what's so
and not
important
only
about
that,
October the first?
and not only that, Glyne, when one considers the current crime level here in Barbados, the question arises because no disrespect to the other territories, all right, but we have I think a somewhat higher standard of living in Barbados than most of the other lesser developed countries in the Caribbean. At least that is my perspective. You can correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I think I heard you mention a disparity just now in terms
That's
of
right. Yeah.
society and so on. I mean, it raises concerns to my mind as well about safety factors because if there's this free movement, what criminal elements are then making their way into Barbados from these countries? Is the police monitoring this? Is immigration monitoring this? Because my understanding, Klein, is that over the last 3 nights, and I'm looking at it here quickly, Thursday night, there was an attempted carjacking at Price Smart around 7 o'clock. Friday night, a soldier was carjacked while at the hot pot. Saturday night, around 8 p.m., a woman was held at gunpoint and had her vehicle taken. And we haven't even begun into this process that we're discussing tonight. How do we control that element? Because that element is a reality, is it not?
And not only that, that element feeds into government's responsibility to our country,
Mm.
security and
And
safety.
safety,
Right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
In all fairness, I heard and I read Minister Simmons's glossing over that fact, saying that Barbados was able that we were able to have a World Cup, and we were able to filter through the criminal elements because of the RNS and working with Interpol, etc. So he's trying to say there's no, and they have the ability to know. He said this to know the status of most or some, not all, some before any potential crimes can enter Barbados. Some, but criminal you one cannot assume not only that seasoned or experienced or convicted
Correct,
criminals, people will come
correct.
and they will fall, or they might come because see as new opportunities, which
Correct,
will Barbados,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So how will these people how do you monitor them?
Yeah.
How do you keep track? What documentation will be given to them that they can use to facilitate business in Barbados? So it is a very complex and deep issue. I'll talk about, what was so fascinating about this selected for Guyana, whose economy is booming in oil. They're not part of who you
It's
would
not a
think
part of it.
that who are a shortage of labor and various stuff. They're not part. They are not part
No.
of this. How comes? How and they need then there's a higher and more urgent demand for these jobs, for to fill these jobs than there's in Barbados. And Barbados is going to help me make it make sense. It does not make
It
sense.
doesn't, Glenn. I mean, you're talking about Ghana. I'm thinking St. Lucia. No disrespect to these territories, and I don't want anybody listening to the show tonight or in the future to think that. But these are the realities that we're dealing with, and when I look at a decision that was made, I don't know how the government of Dominica feels about it. I don't know how the government of Belize feels. I don't know how the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines feels. And when I say government here, let me just backtrack a little bit, Glide. I should really say the people,
Okay.
because we can't really trust the statement being by a government made by a government representative of how people feel about something when the people don't even know what is going on.
But there's one common element. I find it interesting. Our prime minister is known to have a very close relationship with St. Vincent,
Ralph
Granny's prime
Gonsalves.
minister, and also the Prime Minister of Dominica,
Hmm.
right?
Desmond
Well,
Scary.
I'm not sure of the status of Belize, but the point is, so that because CARICOM, like I said, does not have the legality to impose its decision on other people. People have their alliances, their friends, their buddies, they're close to others, and they might therefore be an understand to do things together at this
Hmm.
point. But I feel that that might be good for the boys' club or the boys and girls' club at CARICOM level. But we in Barbados need to be know much more. All we know is
Yes,
announcement. We need doesn't have to spell out and itemize the detail. Because when they come here, we have to live. We presumably
we gotta
how
live with
long
them.
they have. I guess they come here indefinitely. Go and come. How long will they have before they get resident status, citizenship, can vote? I mean, all those things have to be
All of those
spelled out.
are factors.
Right.
Can they go to the banks and get loans, build homes, buy property? I mean, are all of these considerations that have to be taken into consideration, Glyne?
Of course. And I think the government of Barbados needs Barbados a full explanation, discussion, information, and come and meet the public and answer people's questions directly. Because so far the information has been very sparse, has been
Hmm.
coming in a very ad hoc, roundabout way. And I feel that this is something that probably have to change the future of Barbados for many years to come.
But you know,
And therefore,
when you were speaking, I made a note. Um, you said there was no hint given. You said a statement along that line, and I
right,
made a note. But that's their modus operandi, Glyne. This government doesn't discuss anything with the population of Barbados. Period. It makes major decisions that will alter significantly the life of Bajans. And with no dialogue, no discussion, no information, no transparency, no explanations, no processes, it makes you wonder, you know, do they go to sleep and wake up having a dream and just put things?
no.
I mean,
But yeah, by now, like I said, I should not be surprised because
yeah.
some years ago, uh, Dr. Avinas Borsart, who was then a big advisor to the government, we were engaged on a calling program. I think I've mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. I asked him why does the government get itself caught in unnecessary controversies by not giving people information to clearly to prevent them having to then dig themselves out of the hole. He said, we decide among ourselves what we'll talk about or what we don't talk about. We don't talk about. So you don't talk about, but then you don't give people any information except that when it suits your purpose, you then want to have powers, people, ideas from ask people to to make a whole of country approach to
Mhm.
help bail you out of our sticky wicket like you are now with crime. Other issues, I think there's a government that had proclaimed and had campaigned heavily on transparency, accountability, freedom of information, and they have
They've
turned their back
violated
on
every
it
single one of them.
before unquestionably.
Every
So now,
single one.
so that they no longer make reference to those principles. They talk about resilience and what resilience and all the other buzzwords, but they don't talk about transparency, accountability, and fair anymore. They have been
No,
replaced with
no,
resilience,
no.
transformation,
Hmm.
reformation, all those buzzwords. So they have to do better than this, and we should
But you
not
know,
let it rest.
Glenn, what it reflects to me, if you don't mind me saying this is exactly the same attitude of the global movements of Davos and the WEF. None of those people have been elected to office. They make decisions. They don't give a farthing how it affects the people of any country. They make the decision, and you have to toe the line or abide by it. And I'm not saying, and I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's the modus operandi I'm thinking about. It's the way things are done. No discussion, no dialogue with the governments of countries or whatever. Um, Charles Schwab's and his gang, I call them his gang, they get up there and they make decisions and they say to governments, this is what you have to do, this is what you're supposed to do. This is the same type of operation that we're seeing happening right here in Barbados.
I understand you. I agree with you, but in all fairness to Davos and Charles Schwab and the World Economic Forum, they do not invade Barbados. Barbados goes to their meetings. Barbados willingly
That is true.
participate.
That is
That's
true.
it. So if you
That is
join the
true.
club, if you join the club for what you want are perceived benefits,
Mm-hmm.
you have to
You got
comply,
to pull the
or
line.
you got to put the line.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
and if do not separate the World Economic Forum from the World Bank, for the ADB, the IMF, they're all business
All
entities,
together. Yeah.
all together pursuing the
All together.
same need. They're not there to develop and make countries like Barbados wealthy and prosperous.
No, no,
We are
no.
supposed to keep us in a state of dependency for the
Correct.
rest of our existence, if it is possible.
Correct. And use this as a guinea pig for different processes because whether people admit it or not, that is what is happening with us.
And I'm yet to see, especially in the Caribbean, any country that has had a long-standing relationship with the IMF that has prospered. Even Jamaica, which has been since Jamaica has had various programs with the IMF since Jamaica became. I think they became independent in '62, and by '63 they were into a program.
Yeah.
And they cannot yet stand on their feet. And we are in a recycle. We are on a treadmill of program. In fact, I heard the Prime Minister say many months ago. I was shocked that she said she was shocked that one of the loans that she had entered had variable interest rates. I know that Barbados was found itself it was getting loans to repay loans, getting loans to repay. So that is the kind of syndrome that we're into, and of which we will not get ourselves out in the foreseeable future. Don't mind the growth, the paper growth that you see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that they report every few years. That's paper growth to satisfy the criteria of the IMF. But there's no real development.
In the process, yeah.
Of the people in education, health, we're still struggling to meet all the and to meet all demands, to meet all traditional standards
Mm-hmm.
have declined because we're no longer able to finance those things out of our own way or out of other developmental loans that we got for specific purposes. But we are now borrowing to keep power to pay back loans.
Well, Glenn, I see her out to save her life because the particular piece of equipment required to do the operation she needs to have done is not available in Barbados. So you have to think about all of these things when you're moving into a country, and you're so right in that. And I think it feeds right into what you wanted to talk about with relates to the health facility. Period.
Glenn, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. I think both of you are Maxine, and then you, Freddie, were relate to what they call the motivations behind migration, inward or outward. What they call the push factors and the pull factors. The push factors are the circumstances that you're trying to get away from: no job, no prospects of enhancing your life, poor health, political instability, etc. And then there are the pull factors: best standard of living, like Max talked about, education, health, housing, and water. So these are the things that make people want to come and go backward and forward. And also want to say quickly, Maxine, that I am beginning to believe I'm beginning to understand now why neither Jamaica nor Guyana are into this move. Both of them are having elections this year, right? And
Yeah,
Guyana
I
is
think so. I think
right.
so. Jamaica is
And
having elections for sure.
this year,
Yes.
that's right. So therefore,
Yes.
they can't come be part and then be accused of being all these small islanders to come and take over their country.
Yep.
Plus,
There you
plus
go.
let's be fair about let's be frank about it. We know that both Trinidad and Guyana are heavily driven by race in their politics and life.
Hmm. Hmm.
So Trinidad has a new government. Why would you want more blacks coming to Trinidad? Why would you want more blacks into Guyana when a different racial composition dominates the government? Those are the reality, and they will be leaving themselves vulnerable to attacks on their opponents that they're selling out the country, get rid of the country to other people to their disadvantage. I will come back later on with a couple more.
And to manage this, I'm not anti anything, because when people talk about doing things in a structured way, people seem to get upset when they have their personal preferences, or
Different grapes and so on with different
that they have the
nationalities. Yeah.
interest. I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
I remember when I
Sorry,
was
I see.
responsible for immigration.
No, sorry, Glenn. Sorry, Maxine. I saw Glenn raise his hand. I
Yeah,
see
Okay,
that.
no,
go ahead. Sorry, I was
I was going to
looking
say
down.
before Maxine winds up, there are a couple of things I just want to. I'm glad you mentioned, Maxine, about the making checks on businesses and the NASP in particular. I was horrified a few weeks ago to hear Minister Jordan say that people are now employees or potential employer no ask to check for themselves. They no longer have the inspection to go and check on businesses. And you know why is that? Because the IMF told them that cut that staff they were not necessary. So now you have to work, but there are no people to enforce the law to do inspection.
But
Yes,
how does an individual check on himself? You come and ask me, and I say yes. How I don't
you,
have to
you,
produce a book to
you either
you
go
as an
online or
employee. I
you
want the job. You don't have to show me if I want the job. You can say, look, lady, you want this job or you don't want this job. You know what I mean?
yeah. But another thing is I also want to say that I'm glad you mentioned about the studies that were done about by the immigration or what, because I've never heard that mentioned in Barbados before. And that's why it was raised with
No,
commission.
sir.
On what a basis do you make your decision say that we will not have the influx? I didn't want to point you that there was no, according to the press yesterday, there was no communication issue yet at the end of the government. There used to be a standard thing. I remember being
Yeah.
in Guyana in
Yeah.
1972 and staying sleeping on a desk till 8 o'clock the next morning to finalize that, to get a copy of the finalized communique. This used to be a standard thing. The other thing too, I think the prime minister is very careful not to be associated with this negative potential fall, because it is clear that people are not happy with it, and therefore you get your colleague to do it for you. As though I say, something that's been decided by CARICOM and not Barbados, but like I said, Maxine, you can correct me, that there's no enforcement method. It is voluntary or involuntary. So CARICOM can't make Barbados do anything that Barbados does not want to do, even though it might have been announced by the new incoming chairman, the new chairman of CARICOM. So those are things that, and you were talking about the incompetence that operate in health or whatnot. Right? I don't know if you saw this. There was a story in yesterday's Barbados Today, or the weekend's Barbados Today. Sharia Braffett has been doing a series where she gets into the bus. Sharia Braffett at the bar and drives around the country and gets stories from people, monitors the buses, and a very
Okay.
interesting story. And she said, in the last one she did, that a source told her that the new fleet of electric buses, right, cannot regenerate. The old fleet, the first set they bought in, when they're going downhill, they can recharge their battery as they're going downhill. Now these ones
Yes.
have to
Great regeneration.
go. The newer ones, how can you, what kind of monkey government this is? That you would have had a track record, documents show the cable, so somebody going to buy new ones. And I heard the acting prime minister, deputy prime minister saying that how Barbados will know how we're getting some more buses, and we don't have the largest fleet of electric buses in this part of the world. Yeah, but only saying some know how to spend more time charging
Charging.
than working.
I mean, there has to be systematic processing and planning to get this thing done.
For Dr. Friend, what we're talking about is competence. Competence is something which Barbados used to be known and celebrated for. We were once voted according to the title of the best managed black country in the world. We were known for our administration. Now we're saying incompetence in the most basic. How, like the buses, could you buy one set of buses and a few years later, same time for the same purpose, and no, there's no investigation. No, you're not checking the specifics to see if you get up. How do you make that mistake at the expense of taxpayers here? How? It's quite incredible. We like anyhow.
No, these are things that I really feel that we have to raise. I think you mentioned a little earlier, Glyne, the government campaigned on a matter of transparency and accountability.
And information, freedom of information.
Right. And I mean, when we discussed the cybercrime bill, I remember Anthony Green, CEO. I think they called him CEO at Starcom.
Right.
Raising the matter of freedom of information in the Senate when we were having those presentations. And I am wondering when and Maxine, help. Well, both of you all have been in government, so you need to help me. I haven't been in government. I haven't been privileged to be there, and I don't know if having been privileged not to be there, you all would advise me to be. But nevertheless,
it's a once in a lifetime experience.
but
Nothing can
nevertheless,
equal it.
when a major decision of this nature is going to be made, or any major decision that is going to result in significant shifts and changes in the culture, well-being, operations, processes, lifestyles, and so on, the people doesn't government engage um, persons outside of their what's the word I'm looking for?
Their
Outside of
circles,
their
their
circle,
circles, right?
and discuss with them, car suppliers or dealers or mechanics who have to work on these things. Don't they discuss these things with other people to get information that they could make an informed decision?
Get feedback and input. So I'm very
For,
concerned.
if I
But
might go quickly back, you raised the question of expansion of QEH. When it was in government up to 2003, it had been contemplated that the land which this government gave away free of cost, the Faxon Bank, would have been used to accommodate the expansion of the old tertiary school, nursing, etc. That lovely building that has been refurbished, it looks so good. And some would do over the other side of the road where the old um, clinic used to be, where they got the lab. That so there was going to be expansion on both sides of the road. So you have a concentration of hospital facilities in the same. But there was certainly talk of looking at that site, which has been the site that was given away free of cost for that kind of expansion. So there was thought of that. So you consolidate and create certain connectivity and efficiencies and coordination, which rather than, remember one thing they was talking about having a acute building hospital up Kendall Hill or something. I remember various sites were talking about. It didn't make sense because you'd be too far flung on traffic, etc. So it was thought it'd be better if you were to keep everything concentrated like in most other places. Like in Belleville, is a concentrated of medical facilities. You see what I mean? But it was not it was not followed through.
Senator Gill, former ambassador
But,
and minister of state in the prime minister's office, I believe.
but listen,
That would have been Glyne.
I I I
Just call us
I
Glyne, Maxine,
I like
Kevin,
to focus.
Ferdinand.
I
Right,
like to
Glyne?
Ferdy, I like to focus more on what I do know and say no than the
Instead
past.
of what?
I don't enjoy that. That it means nothing to me. That is one phase. But I want to
I,
say, talking about the Harrison Point situation, but I prefer to refer to Mr. Gill as a former MP than former senator because to be MP has a higher status than senator. But I always give him credit for that. But the Harrison's Point, I first of all want to commend Maria Bradshaw for get that story out. It was obviously
yeah,
meant she had to do some digging because the so-called or attempted answers by the government representatives were very guarded. They were trying to say very little or nothing. One person wanted to believe you that they are involved, but they don't know the income. Give my bread. Before there's an agreement, in my day, Maxine, that would have to be in a cabinet paper to get
Of
approval,
course,
and you would get
justifying.
the cost and the income and all that will go through. So I want to commend her. I know I'm told that by some of my colleagues that she was subject to a severe amount of pressure when she brought that story about remember the one about the Auditor General's report, right?
yes.
I understand her colleagues said she said she said so. I hope that this does not trigger another reaction like that. But I think it's an excellent story. I think that part of the problem is that um, the government was caught off guard with the story. And I think that they are doing it because they are seeking to find money to run the country. They're seeking to find money. So therefore they will go for that before the implications, consider the implications like David Gill sorted out. There are realistic, obvious implications for it. That would degrade the whole quality of a medical operator overnight. How do you keep a separation between the two, physical separation between the two compounds? So I understand there's 80 acres, it's a lot of land. The medical facility only comprises a small fraction. But when you got workers on the site, how are you going to control their access and their room and their exploring, etc.? That's a very vulnerable thing. And I think the government really again has once again shot itself in the foot in that regard.
Okay.